is built on racism. And we are all tired. I think that the only way to really try to bear it is to be able to, sometimes you have to know when enough is enough. And I think that that is important. I think Toya does a very good job of that. Sometimes you got to pull out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to pull out. That's a fact.
Should always pull out.
I'm glad you said it, because in my head I was like, this is go very unprofessional. My mouth always. You know what?
That might have to be the title of the show. Sometimes you gotta put nothing.
I mean,
I'm sorry, I took you right off. Keep
going,
girl.
It could be a commercial for some. I mean,
oh, sweet God,
there's a lot of awareness in that title.
Yeah, facts. Educate the youth. Okay, that's
I'm noting that right now. I'm noting that sometimes.
But you have to know when enough is enough.
Yeah.
And you gotta put it down and tag somebody else in.
Yes.
And next time you show up. So I think that's the other thing too. When we see that other people are saying that they're tired, what can we do to empower and uplift? Because I feel like that's when we have to be like, look, I get it. And this is what I'm going through too. And I think sometimes just being able to sit down with your core group and share your experiences does help, because sometimes we are suffering in silence. So even though we all as a collective know we are upset about the verdicts and the things that are happening, if you don't talk about it, you are suffering in silence. You should be talking to people, because it's a lot to just take in. And I think too, a lot of times actually, we talk about like, well, what can we do for the younger generation? I think we have to make sure that we are talking to them too, because we live in the age of technology, and no matter what, we want to protect our children. We can't stop them from CNN.
Yeah.
We can't stop them from the news. These are things that are put into their space and their face, and that they are having to deal with. And I'm sure that their friends are also talking about. They are scared. They are worried. So I think that we have to also address compassion fatigue with our kids, because they can't even just be kids. They are having to constantly have these conversations about racism too, while going through a pandemic, while not being able to be around their friends. So I think we have compassion fatigue, but we gotta look out for the babies too right now.
Agreed.
I definitely agree with everything that you're saying, and definitely, I guess to speak on the part with the kids, it is crazy the amount that they feel, and you got to catch what they say, because they're not going to be direct with it as far as say how they're feeling, but it's the little things that they do say where you're just like, okay, got it. I didn't know you felt that way. So like an example. And I didn't even know this until just speaking with my daughter the other day, is her best friend is Hispanic. And he lives across the street. Love them. They're like Corey and Topanga. I hope they, live happily ever after, because I love arroz con pollo. But anyway, I do. But I love their friendship, and it all started from my mom actually taking her to the bus stop, and no one was speaking to his mom. No one was speaking to her, because I definitely live in a development where you will see Trump signs throughout. And my mom was just saying something in conversation. That's how they became friends. But little did I know that like in her 4th grade class, they were being rude and saying, I hope Trump builds the wall and you can't come back. And my daughter, being my daughter, which I was proud, like, she was like, yeah, y'all not doing that. Y'all not doing that, because you're going to have an issue with me. And, and the crazy part was, it was the rhetoric that they were hearing at home. And that, but the fact that it just flowed out their mouth, being
so free
9-year-olds and 10-year-olds, it's heartbreaking. And the fact that she didn't say, I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me? She was just like, I heard it all the time, but I knew it was wrong. I was like, but that's something you need to say. So now we have those conversations, like, all right, just checking in, did anybody say anything crazy? How are you feeling? And I know we've made it a conscious effort at the dinner table not to always talk about what's going on, because yes, we're frustrated, and that's how we're getting it out, speaking to one another. But she's 10 and she can hear it and she's processing it and might not know how to articulate how she's feeling. So
Right.
definitely on, in the children's eyes, they can be tired of it because this is not how they experience school. This is not how they heard how school was supposed to be, how friendships were supposed to be. But I definitely had like a proud mom moment, like good for you for standing up. But
Mm-hmm.
you also have to express that and let me know that, because I
Yeah.
would go in, because his mom and I went up to the school the very next day, like, okay, what's up? How you going to handle this?
Right.
Because it's not okay. And then like looking around to the teacher, I'm like, you have a class full of minorities. How are you going to let 2 or 3 students dictate the room and spread this hate through it? And you have a classroom and you're a minority itself. Like, it didn't bother you at all. So, and I
Right.
like and it's just clearly like you could tell like she just checked out when it came to it. It's like, you can't check out. I know it's hard being a teacher as it is. And this is before COVID hit, but you need to be paying attention to those kinds of things, because
And you can't allow hate speech. Sorry
no,
not
you're
to even
fine.
interrupt,
No,
but
but you can't.
same way that you wouldn't allow any hate speech about the LGBTQ community,
Mm-hmm.
but you allow in hate speech about visible minorities, because
Yes.
that is problematic. And no one allows that anywhere.
Ever.
God forbid you even said anything tiptoeing that line.
Mm-hmm.
They will be on your ass. But it's funny to make jokes about a wall.
Yeah,
No, that's not
that's
funny.
not
It's
okay.
not funny. It's not a thing. And it should be zero tolerance. Your little ass is out of here. Because who you talking to? You
Right.
can't talk like that. And I get that it came from your parents, but you need to know, not here, not now. So if that's how y'all talk at home, then that's what you do, because I can't control that. But
Right.
in my classroom,
Mm-hmm.
I run supreme and I run this shit.
Right.
You can't say
Like, scan the room, boo. Like, take a look. Like, you will get your ass whooped.
How
Go
did the
say
teacher
that.
respond? How did the teacher
She was
respond?
she the way she responded to things bothered me. So she was like, "Oh, we'll handle it." I'm like, "Yeah, handling it is not going to work for me. I need you to tell me what actions you're going to take so that this doesn't happen again. Because what you don't know about me is I got time. My job is very flexible. I will be up and back and forth in the school trying to figure out, because I'm not going to send an email to your principal. I'm not going to email you all the time. I'm going to come up face to face. How are we going to handle this? Because that's not okay. If a 10-year-old can see that that is wrong, I would think that a 30-plus-year-old would see that this is wrong too, and handling it is not going to work, because they didn't say it 1 or 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, but like last year was trash when it came to that teacher and how she handled situations. But it didn't happen again. But I think that it's because a lot of the kids on their own had those conversations, was like, yeah, we're not doing it. Because I would ask, like, well, what did y'all talk about? Well, we talked, they were talking politics at the table and talking about racial things at the table. And I'm just like, okay, well, did you see a change? And she's like, yeah, no one really said anything. I was like, well, did you threaten them? Because I might have to handle it that way. She's like, am I going to get a phone call? She was like, no, we just told them it wasn't nice to say. And we weren't going to let him say it. And I was like, oh, well, good job. Like, I'm proud of you. I'm glad that you stuck up for your friend, number one. And I'm also glad that you realized what they were saying was not fact. What they were saying was not okay. It was not something that should be repeated, and that you went about it the correct way by, stopping it dead in its tracks. Now, next time, come and tell me so we can handle it. But,
yeah.
that was great. But yeah, as far as at work and compassion fatigue, I don't have compassion fatigue when it comes to work, because, like I said, I take what people say at work with a grain of salt. I know coming into it, I was the only speck of pepper in a bowl full of salt. So what they say does not bother. But it's interesting to see now that our new CEO has committed to this whole diversity and inclusion thing. We have consultants coming in, and they're not so much throwing the money for like the tax credit. They're like actually going about it and having our business resource group help with it. But it's funny to see that now everything is virtual, where you have to see people's faces, how they struggle to keep the fact that they're tired of hearing it. Because like I had this one guy, like all the questions we had, like our town hall the other day, this one guy was just like, another, like he would say like, y'all got another. Like, damn, like black people are really upset, huh? Wow, like yeah, like you don't realize on my end of things, I'm in risk management, and I'm on like the more corporate, I guess you can say, side of things, where policies, procedures, and everything I handle. So you don't see a lot of what I look like on my end. Majority of the people that look like us, they're in like, customer service and collections, handling the customers face to face. So before, they didn't even offer the business resource groups to that section of the company, which boggled me. I'm like, you have Black people, or you have anything. They didn't open up the resource groups to anyone. So I'm just like, okay, that's odd. So now that they've included everybody, oh, now you see that no, there's Black people in this company. What we finna do? So I laughed at the fact that like people were struggling and getting upset that we actually have to talk about what's happening. Because what people fail to realize is that, hey, like in 2020, we're about to have another civil war if y'all don't get it together real quick. And the fact that we have the means and the sources and the technology and we're having this conversation, you should be glad that no one's resorting to more violence than what has already taken place. And the fact that you look disturbed, like we're bothering you and we interrupted your lunch to talk about how you should treat people fairly, just shows me how far we have to come and just be real. Like I'm not going to work with you ever.
That's because those are the same people that are saying shut up and dribble. That's why those are those same people who say shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
they don't want to be bothered with it because they don't have to be.
Exactly. Which is, and it's like, even when you hear, well, I didn't own slaves. No, not you personally, but your last name surely did at some point. I mean, it's in the history books, whether you guys want to read it.
And you
or
benefited
not.
off of it.
Right.
No, you did not own it, but your generational wealth was built on the back of slaves.
Right.
So it doesn't matter.
Like I had to check my coworker. She's like, "Oh my gosh, these questions. What about these questions? What about them? What, are you uncomfortable? Are you saying this meeting is too long? What? Because the majority of the 90-minute meeting was
90 minutes,
girl.
Now you got Ruffles for this.
I mean, it was a town hall. It was like, again, we had a new CEO. It was his first town hall. A lot has happened.
I've been rolling my eyes too. I'm sorry. As a Black person, I wouldn't want to talk about it. And I'm sorry. Continue.
The whole thing was 90
goddamn
minutes. It wasn't 90 minutes talking about the solution. It literally, the whole meeting from start to beginning, like, hi, my name is such and such, and I'm your new, all that stuff. That was 90 minutes, and they roundtable about the different things going on. But the Q&A, should I say, majority of it was about diversity and inclusion. Now, 90 minutes was hella long. I was in my bed while the meeting was going on. Hopefully they're not listening. But it was nice little background noise. But I perked up when I was like, oh, y'all talking about it? Like, what's up? But like literally that's when her messages started coming in like, oh, these questions. Why is it bothering you?
Because I'll say this. If you keep hearing about it, even as a Black person, all right, we keep talking about it. But where's the action? What are we going to do? So I think I can understand that. I don't think it was racially charged. It may have been some sprinkling of a racial charge in it, but she probably had damn compassion fatigue. Like, how much more do I have to emote about this? But nothing is changing. I mean, if we want to talk about the fact that, that indictment came out for the one officer on the same day that Emmett Till's killers got off, it's just like, all right, well, what the hell? What are we supposed to do at this point? Like, it's the same thing over and over again. I watched some girl's live. She's an attorney, and she was saying, her grandmother said, we've been here before, and we'll move past it, and then we'll be here again. That's compassion fatigue too. Like, it is what it is. Like, I am tired. We are all tired. So if I was in a meeting for 90 minutes, I'd have been like, listen, what else y'all want from me? What you want? You want the skin off my back? Like, what? Oh, speaking of skin off backs, but I'll hold on to that for later.
I don't know. That sounded good. Okay.
Lovecraft Country, girl.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was gross.
No, I haven't watched it yet.
That potion episode, bitch. I was like, it was super nasty.
No. I couldn't even sleep after that. Why does this go off at 10 o'clock?
I don't watch it when it comes on. I watch it the next day in the daylight. And I'm not even a scary ass person. But that was too much.
That's why I have never watched it.
Don't watch it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
It was way too much. I was like, I'm never watching this at night again.
But right there, it was a switching of the roles, and she took it the wrong way because she wasn't using the power that came with her ability to switch into that skin.
Right.
I think that's something that, even staying in the vein of this episode's theme, you know, the other parties don't understand the power that they actually have. Like, we can
Mm-hmm.
talk till we're blue in the face, but if they keep talking, taking from us the information and then speaking around it and not putting into action, then we all gonna be tired forever talking about this shit round and
Correct.
round until something is done. So they're making effort. There are efforts with, you know, continuing to